And now on the Business Radio X Network, another exciting episode with Jaime Overturf in Connecting Tucson with Jaime.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Connecting Tucson with Jaime Overturf, where we focus on connecting our community and local businesses. Today we have Jim Gresham, who is the event coordinator for the Fiesta de los Bomberos Feast and Fairways event here in Tucson. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, so I'm very happy that you can be a part of that. Thank you so much for being here, Jim.
Glad to be here.
Great. I'm going to tell our listeners just a little bit about you, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, you didn't have a choice. But Jim Gresham is a retired 42-year veteran of the Arizona Fire Service and a member of the Arizona Fire Service Hall of Fame. He is also a Vietnam-era military veteran serving in the U.S. Air Force from 1965 to 1969. Jim was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. But Jim, I'm not going to hold that against you.
Don't.
He joined the U.S. Air Force in June 1965, and it was during that time in his military service that he ended up in Tucson. He married to Susan, and they have 5 children, 12 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. You have a house full.
And counting.
Is there more coming along the way?
There's some coming, yes.
Oh, just recently found out?
Yes.
Oh, congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
So, anyways, I believe you and Susan will be celebrating your 38th wedding anniversary this December, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so you got to take her someplace nice. Again, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So, Jim, you've had a very long and illustrious career in the military and fire service, and you are a member of the Arizona Fire Service Hall of Fame. Did you know you always wanted to be a firefighter, or was it a calling? How did that come about?
No, it pretty much just happenstance. I was in the military here in Tucson, due to be discharged. As luck would have it, my kids' godparents, my kid's godfather was a captain on the fire department, Tucson Fire Department.
Okay.
And so he, knowing that I was due to be discharged and was looking for employment, made me aware of a firefighter test that Tucson was putting on. So he got me hooked up, signed up for the test, took the test, and was selected for the upcoming class, which was about 3 weeks after I got out of the military. So I went out of the military, took a brief 3-week sabbatical from that, and started working for the fire department July 7th of 1969.
And you haven't looked back?
No. In fact, enjoyed it very, very much.
So you mentioned a test. Tell me a little bit about the kind of test that firefighters have to go through to become a firefighter.
Well, it's kind of like it is today, only it's perhaps a little more complicated these days. But there's a written exam, and then if you successfully pass that exam, you take a physical agility test. And then if you score well on that, or high enough on that, you go to a departmental interview, and you're interviewed by officers from the respective fire department, in this case, the Tucson Fire Department. And if you make the list, you go take a physical exam, a medical exam. If you pass that, you start work.
So that physical agility test, is that where they're carrying all of those fire hoses up all of the stairs that I've seen on TV? Because I know for a fact, all of my listeners know, I can't do that.
Yeah. It's not as, the one I took wasn't nearly as difficult as the one they take nowadays. We did some carries, and we drug hose, and we did a few other raised ladders, and did a few other things, ran a half mile for time and stuff like that, but it's much more complicated these days.
Well, I have to say thank you to everybody in service for doing that, because I know how strenuous, and it's physically tasking on your body in most cases as well, too. So.
Well, you're young. I mean, I was 23 when this happened, and so I was in pretty good shape. But I know for a fact that they have firefighters testing at various departments 30, 40, even 50 years of age.
Wow, 50.
Yeah. And it's, they might relocate from another area of the country, and
True.
The opportunities there, and they're not ready to hang it up. So they sign on for a department here, and there's plenty of opportunity in this Tucson area because there's quite a number of fire departments serving the area.
Well, that's wonderful. So tell me, how do you become a member of the Arizona Fire Service Hall of Fame?
Well, I would like to think it's just dedication and hard work. Some people are in there because of perhaps a significant rescue they may have performed that saved lives. For me, it was my life's work, 29, 30 years worth of work tallied up, resulting in being nominated. And then your nomination is reviewed by a panel, and they make the decision. And I was fortunate enough to be selected. That's
amazing.
Like the pinnacle of my career right there.
I was going to say that's amazing. 30 years of service.
Right.
And, you said you're retired, but technically you're really not retired because you're still kind of working.
Well,
you do a different way of service,
yeah,
I guess you could say.
and it goes in cycles. For me, when I left employment at Tucson Fire, I went right to work for Northwest Fire.
Okay.
So I served 28 years at Tucson Fire Department, 14 years at Northwest Fire. Retired for the second time from there, and then continued to write grants for fire departments in the area. And then while I was still working with Northwest Fire, we began the Fiesta de los Bomberos event. And that originally was known as the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation Benefit Dinner and Golf Tournament. And as that event had grown and became more prevalent in the area, we energized the name a bit. And we also changed the benefactor the beneficiary of our proceeds. So originally we were sending everything to the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation in Emmett, Maryland, which is where the National Fallen Firefighter Memorial is located. And then I guess we did that for probably 10 or 11 years. And then our stakeholders asked us to keep some of this money here locally to help with some of the local issues. So that's when we transitioned from everything going to the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation to the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation.
So that actually leads me into my very next question. Not only do I still think you like just to keep busy. Writing grant work is not easy, I have to say. Yeah. So kudos to you on that. But tell us a little about the history of the Fiesta de los Bomberos Feast and Fairways event and the relationship between the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation and the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
Well, back in 2006, my co-conspirator, Gary West, who was the chief officer working for Northwest Fire, was back at the National Fire Academy and kind of got cornered in a room with a longtime fire chief from back in that area. And they solicited him to have a golf tournament here in Tucson.
Okay.
Well, Gary's never been one to just do something simple. So he comes back from that trip, and we start talking about it, and next thing we know, it's not just a golf tournament, it's going to be a dinner and a golf tournament. So that's how we started. We started with both a benefit dinner, where we would typically bring in a keynote speaker. We would typically bring in a survivor, mom, dad, brother, sister, whatever, and have a nice benefit dinner, do an auction, have a pretty good night of it, and then the next morning, bright and early, we're out on the golf course playing golf.
After the dinner.
Yeah. So that was kind of a rough transition, but we managed to do that. We did that for probably 6 or 7 years at the Star Pass Resort and Spa. Then we transitioned over to the Casino del Sol for 4 years. It was during that transition when we decided we were going to change the beneficiary and go and have most of the proceeds from the event go to the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation.
Right. You mentioned that originally you were sending the most of your proceeds to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, which in itself is a mouthful. But now, you recently made that change, a few years ago?
I think this year's our third year with the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation. Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us, where do those proceeds actually go when you're talking about the proceeds from this benefit dinner and the golf tournament? Where do they go? Who do they help?
Well, the money that we give to the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation is used to address unmet firefighter health and safety needs.
Okay.
For firefighters in the southern part of Arizona. And it pretty much boils down to Yuma County, Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, and Pima County. So the funding goes to address things in the arena of cardiac health.
Okay.
Heart attacks are the leading cause of firefighter deaths nationwide, has been the leading cause of firefighter fatalities, line-of-duty deaths nationwide since I can remember. The second leading cause, or the second place they spend the money, is on cancer prevention. Cancer recently has been identified as the second leading cause of line-of-duty deaths, and they expect it to soon become the leading cause of firefighter deaths. And then the third area that the funds are spent on is mental health counseling. Over the last probably 3 or 4 years, more firefighters have committed suicide nationwide than have died fighting fires.
Really?
Or died as a result of fighting fires. So those were the three priorities for our committee, and in agreement with the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation's priorities as well.
And all of those three topics that we just discussed, those are for here locally in Tucson, the majority of those funds, correct? Helping with the mental health, the cancer prevention, and the cardiac issues, yes.
The 80% of the proceeds from our event stays here locally.
Perfect.
Because we have a long-standing relationship with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, it was our committee's decision to continue to support their efforts, because they essentially are the organization that honors America's fallen at the National Memorial. They support the surviving family members of fallen firefighters after the fatality. And then one of the biggest things they do nowadays is they are developing programs that help minimize or reduce the number of firefighter fatalities. And now with the realization that some of these other issues, mental health and cancer, have come to the forefront, they're spending a lot of their resources funding research in that regard to see what the problems are and how they can be addressed. So we give 20% of the proceeds to the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation.
And I may be off topic, but our event here in Tucson is probably one of the largest events that the National Fallen Firefighters sees on a national level. Isn't that correct?
It is. Back when we started our event, there was a local tournament in Emmitsburg. That grew to 10 events nationwide, all coordinated through the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. It got up to as many as 35 golf tournaments across the country, typically held about the same time of the year. That was the original concept. And they probably generated close to $500,000, about $250,000 to $500,000 a year as a result of these tournaments. And so they've since declined, and they're probably doing about 25 tournaments nationwide. They're kind of done at different times of the year. You can't play golf in certain places.
Well, you're not going to go play golf in Alaska?
Yeah, you can't do that in certain times of year. But we used to do our event in June. We did it for probably 8 years, and then finally people
June
said...
in Tucson.
Yeah. Finally, the people said, it's too hot in June to be doing this event.
But
we try to economize. We try to get the hotels when the prices are lower. We try to get the golf courses when the green fees are lower. Exactly. And it worked out. But then as we began doing this event, we realized that those same rates are available in September, depending on when in September.
Right.
And so we decided to move it to September a couple years ago, and it's actually worked out quite well for us.
So I know we've had many of these conversations before because, I do now sit on the board with you, and I try to help out in the best of my capacity and abilities. You all are training me very well.
We're going to keep you.
Well, thank you. I plan on staying around. And it's part of the reason I actually became involved with the committee. This is one of my passion points, and helping our first responders, and it's one of the things that we like to do. I know that they have a very difficult job, and they faced some difficult situations in making split decisions I think most people would find difficult on a daily basis. What are some of the challenges that our first responders are seeing right now?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's surfaced as a result of the work that they do is issues with post-traumatic stress, depression, just a variety of other things, job-related, that affect the family as well as the firefighter.
You don't really think about it affecting the family as much, but they're serving kind of too in my
there's
view.
An old saying, happy wife, happy life. Well,
true.
Turn that the other way around. If a firefighter's not happy, then others shouldn't be unhappy as well. So the stresses of the job get taken home, it's just difficult, if not impossible, to separate the two. Those that do don't have that issue, but those who can't often have a tough time dealing with work life as well as home life. So it's a major concern that's surfaced in the over the last 5 years, and as line of duty deaths have been on the decline, firefighter suicides have been on the rise.
And that's surprising. I mean, maybe I'm just not grasping that's a huge. Suicides are on the rise, and a lot of the programs and the proceeds that are coming from this tournament are helping those types feed those programs. Right. Correct? Are there? And
you can liken it to the military in the sense that a lot of military come back from battle, especially the combat troops, with post-traumatic stress because of what they've seen and been involved in. And I don't think people realize that firefighters are exposed to those kinds of traumatic situations on a daily basis, involving young children as well as older adults. And so continual exposure to them affects the mental state of some of the firefighters, and unfortunately results in them taking their own lives.
Wow. I'm thanking you for coming on the show and helping enlighten our listeners and our community about this event. But I do want to say this event is more than just a golf tournament or a fundraiser when you think about it. Tell us about some of the activities we can expect to see or what we can expect during the event.
Well, we have grown from a 2-day event. We're now a 3-day event. Actually, we've been a 3-day event for a while. We do a firefighter health and safety seminar to kick things off. This year, that'll be on Thursday, September 19th. We'll be out at the Star Pass Resort and Spa. This seminar is open to firefighters, officer level, line level. I mean, any level of firefighter who's interested in the topic. But obviously, given our discussion about mental health, this year's topic is going to focus on firefighter mental health. And hopefully, the people that attend that will help. Will get enough information to go back to their own departments and kind of hold this problem at bay, or at least get the firefighters aware of
starting the talks
and where their resources are. And they currently have resources that they don't use. One of the things that the Greater Tucson Firefighter Foundation offers is what they call an off-campus, out-of-chain-of-command counseling model, where a firefighter can go to a independent counselor who's not connected to the department, and hence they're assured confidentiality and don't feel like their career is going to be threatened just because they went to get help because they don't think they're feeling right, or they're depressed, or whatever symptom might have surfaced.
That's important.
Very important. The model was formed with the assistance of Dr. Richard Carmona, 17th Surgeon General of the United States. He worked with staff from the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation and local fire departments and developed this model, which they actually deployed when the Fort Hood shooting occurred some years back. And they were finding that military members during the Fort Hood situation were not getting the help that was readily available to them through the military. But they didn't want to reveal they were having issues for fear that it would jeopardize their career. So they developed this model, brought in outside counselors, and they still didn't get the response that they were looking for. But it's when they took it off-site and out of the chain of command, that's when the healing really began there.
I can see how that could definitely help, because now you're not walking by, your commanders or change of commands or however that works. You're going off-site. They have no visual, seeing what's happening.
You're not going in the building.
Right, exactly.
Where people going, I saw you going into that building. Oh, no. No, it's really been an effective model. There's still some stigma associated with firefighters being more or less a macho group of guys and gals wanting to admit they need help. And if we can get through that and past that stigma, then I think we can really help our firefighters.
How can the community help?
Well, right now, I think the best thing they can do is recognize that there's a problem for the fire service and understand how it's manifested itself. And then through programs, if they know of a program that needs support, provide that support in whatever form or fashion they might be able to as far as the community goes. We do it as a fundraising effort through our event, the Fiesta de los Bomberos event. But I'm sure there's other ways that they could help if they know a firefighter who they think might be having some issues, encourage them to get that support because it's available to them. Hopefully that will result in them getting through that particular period of time.
Help open the lines of communication.
Absolutely.
Reach out to your local community and try to figure out if there's a program that you can help with. Absolutely.
And the counseling is available not only to the firefighter, but they also financially support family members coming in and being involved in that process, which I think is very important to the
So they
success.
help the family all together
Absolutely.
as well. So it's not just the firefighter. It's the family can come in and have the whole conversation as a holistic type of approach to saying, okay, this is affecting the family as well.
Right.
I think that is huge.
And they find that out. It's done totally confidential. The Greater Tucson Fire Foundation, all they know is this many people were counseled. They don't know who they're with, why they were counseled.
Completely anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big key to the program being utilized.
Absolutely. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Connecting Tucson with Jaime, where we focus on connecting our community and local businesses. As your local insurance professional for personal and commercial lines insurance needs and a small business owner, I know how important it is to make new and lasting connections in our community. You never know how a connection will create a spark or pull you in a direction you were not even thinking of. If you are a small business owner or involved in a community project and you would like to be featured on this show, please feel free to give me a call. All of my information is on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, and I would love to hear from you. Today, we're talking with Jim Gresham, who is the event coordinator for the Fiesta de los Bomberos Feast and Fairways event for the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation and the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation. Jim, we did talk briefly about where it was, but when and where is the Fiesta de los Bomberos Feast and Fairways being held this year?
Well, this year we're having our event on September 19th through the 21st. The 19th is the safety seminar. The 20th is the benefit dinner and golf tournament. Benefit dinner and auction. And the 21st is the golf tournament. That's all being done at Star Pass Resort and Spa and the Star Pass Golf Course.
Okay, so are they, if somebody's wanting to go ahead and golf and do the tournament, are there special rooms that are there for them to reserve for this tournament?
Right. If we can go to our website.
I have your website right here. Don't worry about that. So it's the http://feastandfairways.org.
Right, and all the information they need to register or reserve a room for the event is on that website.
Wonderful. And don't worry if you didn't catch that, because not only will we have that on the back end as well, but it's going to be up on the TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, my social media, and we'll give it to you to post on yours as well. So we'll have that there. So obviously every organization and every time you do this event, you have a goal. What is the goal for this year?
Financially?
Okay, so financially and or program-wise, what is the goals?
Well, our goal this year, program-wise, is we're supporting the three major programs that address the three major causes of firefighter fatalities.
Okay, so that's the cardiac that we spoke of,
cancer, and suicide.
Suicide,
Right.
okay. And what is your financial goal?
Well, last year we raised $128,000 gross. We're shooting for $140,000 this year. That's our financial goal. And then net proceeds, last year we cleared more than just over $66,000. And this year we're hoping to hit into the $75,000 range.
So obviously that's a huge goal and a huge amount of number. Did you achieve your goal last year?
We killed our goal last year.
So what was your goal last year?
Our goal last year was only $90,000.
And you raised $128,000?
Right. And then, interestingly enough, the previous year we had only raised $48,000.
So it's almost doubling every single year.
So like I said, we killed it last year. And so this year we're going to take a lot of effort to do what we did last year, but we're optimistic that we can. We were 10 tables short of a sellout at our dinner, so we're shooting for getting 560 folks at the dinner this year. Last year we had 499. We increased our golf. We're going to use all 27 holes at Star Pass this year.
27 holes.
Mm-hmm. That translates to 216 golfers versus 144. And
that's a very lofty goal.
Oh, yeah. And we've always sold the golf tournament out. So this is the first year I can remember, although there's committee members who said we tried it once before. But this is the first year I remember doing all 27 holes.
I've participated in a few, and this is the first I remember trying to do all 27.
So we'll see how that goes. If we sell the golf tournament out at 216 golfers, we'll
I'm predicting some long hours in our future, Jim.
Yeah. Being on the golf committee, yes, you're exactly right.
I know, right? So this is a huge undertaking. How long has the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation been planning this fundraiser, and who is involved?
Well, we started each year. When we close out our event, we do a post-event review.
Okay.
When we switched to September 2 years ago, we did that review in October, and then we started working on next year's event right away.
Okay.
So it starts almost right after it ends.
And many of the committee members actually are fire service, correct?
We have a number of, I want to say there's at least 11 or 12 jurisdictions represented on the committee. Plus we have yourself and other interested persons participating. We're trying to get more of the public representation, but yet we like them to understand a little bit about the fire service and what we do. And Which
is important.
Yeah, we've added about 6 committee members in the last 2 years. So we're up to about 23 committee members.
And I can tell you, I think we probably need some more with the 3 days and our lofty goals. So if anybody's out there, please give us a call. Now, there are some big names and big sponsors participating this year in this event. Can you tell us who they are?
Well, one of the perennial huge supporters of our event have been the firefighter unions in southern Arizona.
Okay.
Within the last 2 years, I think they formed a regional group known as the Professional Firefighters of Southern Arizona. They have been our commissioner-level sponsor since I can remember doing this event. And when I say they, I'm speaking the unions as a whole, even though in the early days they weren't the Professional Firefighters of Southern Arizona. Another big donor that we had join us last year, and it looks like we're going to have a long-term relationship with them, is the Gary Sinise Foundation.
Really?
Yeah, they joined us. We have been haranguing them for at least 6 or 8 years now to get Gary to come and be our keynote speaker. Well, obviously, he's a busy man with his foundation and the Lieutenant Dan Band and the things that they do for the military, but they also support first responders, always have since they were formed some years back.
Yes, they do.
And we have not been able to get Gary to come to town for our event. He's been in town for other events, but just haven't nailed him for this event. So last year they called and said, well, Gary's not available, sorry. Would you take 10 grand? So we said, sure, we'll take 10 grand. We still want Gary, but we'll take the money too. And so they joined us. They get quite a few things for their $10,000, and they donated it all back to us.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it was literally they turned 10 grand into 20 grand because we sold the tables, we sold the golf, and then what we did with some of what they get as a sponsor, we invited members from the Wounded Warriors and all of the military installations in and around Tucson. So you have Davis-Monthan, you have the Air and Army Guard, there's a Marine component out at Marana that we invited, and so we had 4 tables of various military representation at our event for the first time last year, which I think is going to be a long-term connection for us with the military.
That is wonderful. So, and you said Gary Sinise is helping out again this year, correct?
Doing the same thing they did last year. Good news is, they have a new chief operating officer who I learned is a U of A alumni.
Ooh, maybe he gets our foot in the door even more?
Yeah, who is very interested in coming to our event this year. She apparently golfs because she asked me to hold a spot. She didn't say for her, but she said hold a spot. And if they do have representation at our event, we'll ask them to say a few words.
Oh, that is just wonderful. So,
almost most important thing, we got on the list to get Gary to come next year to be our keynote. So no promises because of his schedule, but what she told me was you got to kind of get on the list a year in advance. And so we've been asking for like 8 years now, so keeping my fingers crossed. I
will keep my fingers crossed as well. That would be great. Many people might not know who Gary Sinise is, so can you give a quick rundown on who he is?
Well, he's a movie star.
I know him from Forrest Gump.
That's basically his role in Forrest Gump as Lieutenant Dan was the nucleus of what got his foundation started.
The Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah, and then he has a Lieutenant Dan Band that travels. We tried to get him booked here through the casino when we were out at the casino, but they weren't available, or we would have had them here, which would have been super. And then that would have meant Gary would be here, which would have meant he could have been our keynote speaker. But that didn't happen, unfortunately. But they've been here a couple of times. I know the Red Cross had them here one year. Most recently, they were out at Davis-Monthan doing I think it was a USO benefit out at Davis-Monthan.
I heard about that one,
back, I want to say in February, I think.
Mm-hmm. Just a few months ago.
We tried to get time with him, but they have every minute of his trip scheduled, and we just couldn't. We would have had to go sit at the bar where he was supposed to be and drag him off to the side to get get a word with him, but we couldn't schedule anything.
Oh well. Next year, fingers crossed. Yeah. Next year. So I do, like I said, predict long hours in our future. The thing that struck me when we were talking a few minutes ago was that the funds, the proceeds are doubling every year, each and every year. And it seems like in these last 3 to 4 years, that's been where it's been doing the most trickling. To what do you attribute this event's success in the last 3 years, that you've been able to achieve your goals, and not just achieve them, but blow them out of the water, per se?
Well, I believe it's our formalizing of our relationship with the Greater Tucson Fire Foundation. They've been in existence since 2010. They have their tentacles out in the community. They're connected to some big hitters in the community, which resulted in us benefiting from that as we did our solicitations for the last couple of years. So, and they've been involved with us, not as a full partner, but they've supported our event ever since they formed in 2010. They started small with a little sponsorship here, a little bit. They buy a little trinket for one of the events there, and then pretty soon they became a sponsor, and then they became a bigger sponsor. And then I think it was last year, we signed a formal 3-year agreement with them.
Nice.
Our committee being the we, and we agreed to put this event on and donate the proceeds to their organization for the next 3 years, which goes through 2020.
Well, I am ecstatic and being a part of this member. Now, we talked about the community helping with going out and seeing programs. How can the community get involved with this specific event, either small business owners or people? How can they help make this event bigger and better?
Well, the first way they could be is sign up as a sponsor.
Okay.
And the levels of sponsorship we offer are delineated on our website. Our big level has already been sold. The Gary Sinise sponsorship is a bonus. We've dubbed that the red, white, and blue sponsorship.
Okay.
Which was perfect, I think, for that organization.
I think that was perfect.
And then we have chief level, captain, lieutenant levels. These are our major sponsorship levels, and they range from $5,000 for the chief's level, $2,500 for the captain's level, and $1,250 for the lieutenant level.
And each of those have some perks going along with it, obviously.
Yeah. All of them include a dinner table of 8. The chief and captain levels include golf. Chief level gets 2 foursomes. Captain's level get a foursome. You can also be a golf hole sponsor. That's only $300, and a lot of businesses, that's within most businesses' budget. Last year we had our most golf hole sponsors. We had 27,
nice,
which was double the most we had in the previous years. So that was a nice boost for last year. So,
and if they can't donate, is there opportunities to maybe volunteer?
We do have some limited volunteer opportunity. Our committee is big enough to facilitate our event without necessarily needing outside volunteers. But now that we're expanding our golf tournament to 27 holes, I think there's going to be a greater need for volunteers just to do running around and getting something from here to there on the golf course that the golfers need to support the fun for their day. So we'll have some limited opportunities there.
Potentially, what about silent auction items? Are there certain things that you look for when those happen, or?
Well, in the way of items or volunteers?
Items.
Yeah, anything.
Anything.
But we like things that are unique.
Okay.
So if you're a craftsman or a craftsperson, and you have something special you could contribute. As an example, we're working with a tattoo artist right now who's customizing a fire helmet. Ooh. So that's going to be a pretty nice unique item. We have metal guys that do metal work. We have carpenters, wood crafters. I mean, we get all kinds of donations. We get from craftspersons. We get artwork from artists, local artists. We get photo art from some of the professional photographers in the area. So we get a vast array of things donated. We had a company out of New York City donate a custom firefighter watch and what else did they? There were 2 or 3 other things they gave with that product in their product line that they donated all the way in New York. We're working on, I don't know if you're familiar with the Shark Tank family that had the firefighter cutting board.
Oh, yeah.
We're hoping to secure one of those.
Oh, that would be
donated.
Neat.
Yeah,
that would be really neat.
So we've had firehouse cookbooks donated. Last year we gave our sponsors a gift of a book titled The American Firefighter.
I saw that. That was
which included
gorgeous.
A number of testimonials from various firefighters from all over the country, and that went over that was a big hit with our sponsors last year.
I was kind of jealous, but you know, I thought they were gorgeous.
They were.
We obviously can't do it alone, folks. The community. It sounds like we have a lot of different options that we can do, from volunteering to donating silent auction items, or even gift golf raffle items. I would think that would be something that they're to playing in the foursome. The proceeds go to there, doing a dinner table from lots of different levels of sponsorships. And please go check out TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, Connecting Tucson with Jaime. You'll see those links there. Click on them, see what you can do to help. If you have questions, there's also a phone number there for you to reach out to see if there's any other things that you can do to assist. Obviously, there's so many different moving parts and so many different ways to help. Every little thing helps when we're talking about our firefighters being able to help them reach their goals this year for the cardiac, the cancer, and the suicide programs. So please make sure, reach into your wallets and see what we can do. So Jim, what is your favorite part about this event? I know golf because you do golf, but what else?
Well, I love playing golf, but my favorite part's the dinner.
The dinner?
Yeah.
You like eating and golfing. I got it.
Well, there's a little drinking in there somewhere, but
Of course.
But the dinner, we do a ceremony at the dinner that really touches my heart.
Oh, yes.
So I we have the pipers and the drums and all the fanfare associated with honoring those who have been lost. And for many, many years, Arizona hadn't lost firefighters. Of course, we had that one tragic year when the Granite Mountain, the 19 folks, wildland firefighters were lost, and that happened like a month after our event. And the ceremony for that was really touching when we did that the following year. So that's my favorite part, is when we do the appreciation ceremony for the fallen.
I have to say I concur. I'm always brought to tears during that one, so I always gotta turn away sometimes when I have to go back and do my stuff. But
I just openly cry.
You just openly cry? Yeah. I think I'm just gonna have to do that, but my mascara runs a little bit when I do that.
I don't have that problem.
I don't think you do. No. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us, and thank you for talking about this important event.
My pleasure.
Yes, the Fiesta de los Bomberos, still a mouthful, Feast and Fairways. The event is coming here September 19th through the 21st at Star Pass Resort. Reserve your table, reserve your golf foursome. That has been all for Connecting Tucson with Jaime here at the Stewart Title Studios. If you like the show, please let us know. You can get to know a little bit about Jim Gresham or the Tucson Fire Foundation or the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation by clicking on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com and clicking on Connecting Tucson with Jaime. As always, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and make a new connection. Until next time, keep on making unique connections, and I'll see you then.